So today we're going to be talking about your social media accounts and how they can impact college coaches, your college athletic future, and the next steps you're going to take if you're interested in playing your sport when you go off to college. So by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what I tell my clients, as well as pretty much anyone who will listen, as to how they should approach their social media during their high school years, and specifically during their sophomore, junior, and senior years of high school, if they're really serious about wanting to get themselves recruited. But first, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Blake Starkey. I help high school athletes and their parents understand all the stuff they're going to need to do if they're really interested in playing their sport when they go off to college. And I like to think I know a little bit about it because, you see, for over 20 years, I was a high-level NCAA Division I head coach. I've personally recruited and signed more athletes to full scholarships than I could possibly count, and with what I do now, I've helped even more athletes and families with the recruiting process. So I like to think of myself as your biggest advocate, cheerleader, and possibly asset. So before we jump into this really important discussion on social media, something that I notice in my business is I have a lot of high school athletes, and they are working as hard as they can. They're busting their butt, and they're trying to become as good as possible because they really do want to play their sport when they go off to college, possibly on scholarship. And yeah, working hard and becoming as good as possible, that absolutely is important. But another thing that I notice is there's always these major question marks, usually coming from the parents, and it's like, okay, we're getting good, but what do we do? How do we do this? How do we get coaches to notice us? And so there actually really is a lot of stuff that you kind of need to be doing that's not necessarily when you're on your field of competition or working through your practices, like really, really important stuff. And having coached, I have personally put together just this amazing walkthrough, this checklist, this guide of stuff that you really need to be doing your freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, and senior year if you really want to just know that you're doing all the right things to get yourself noticed by college coaches. It's like checklist stuff, and it's completely free, and I want to send it to you. So super easy. There's a link down at the bottom of this video. All you got to do is click that. You got nothing to lose, completely free, and I will email this to you immediately. Look, I find social media to be fascinating. When it's good, when it's used right, it can add happiness, joy, and just so many great things to our lives. And when it's used badly, jobs can get lost, relationships can get ruined, and ships can get sunk. And I'm convinced with what I do that if there is one group out there that probably pushes the mark a little too much and isn't looking down the road enough, and sometimes will just put any little thing out on their social media, it's that middle-aged group to the high school group. God knows most of us parents have had to we've either gotten emails or we've had to sit through meetings where we've had bosses who have really basically, in no uncertain terms, told us to be very mindful of what we post, because our bosses are very concerned about how their employees and therefore their company comes across to the outside world. And the big window to that is social media. So this is a big deal in the employment world. A while back, I remember reading an article, and it was saying that it's estimated that somewhere in America, every single day, some employee gets fired, loses a job over something stupid that they posted to their social media. But what I want you to think about, and what I want to do today, is to kind of reverse engineer that concept. And let's not think about somebody posting something and then getting fired. Instead, let's think about somebody posting something, and then because of what they posted, somebody sees that, and maybe they were going to give them an opportunity, and that individual never gets that opportunity, and they never even know what happened. They never even know why. You want to know what I believe athletic directors and athletic departments fear the most? Most people would think that it's, a lousy football team or a lousy basketball team because those sports make the most money. And while that is important, I can tell you and I worked at 2 major schools, I believe the one thing that the athletic directors, and that's the head boss, the one thing that they're afraid of more than anything else is terrible press. This is true at the big massive schools like Notre Dame in Texas, and this is true at the small community colleges and junior colleges. And here's what I'm talking about. Let's say a local reporter hears something. kind of stumbles upon something. And then later, they do a little bit of homework, and then that turns into an article, or maybe that turns into a news clip on the evening news. And let's say that's something that's kind of not good. It's kind of dark, and it's about the local university, and it involves one of their athletes. I'll give you some examples. Imagine a member of the soccer team gets arrested and has a whole bunch of pot in the trunk of their car. Or let's say the captain of the men's tennis team gets drunk off his tail one night and gets a DUI and gets arrested. Or maybe he gets arrested for having an illegal weapon in the back seat of his car. Or a wrestler gets accused of sexual assault by a girl that he's been dating. Or let's say a football player punches his girlfriend. Or let's say there's a huge brawl outside of a bar involving several members of the men's baseball team, and there are several arrests. Or let's say 2 members of the women's golf team get busted cheating on an exam. They get suspended. This is called academic integrity issues or academic dishonesty. Or let's say a gymnast or a swimmer gets busted for shoplifting. Can you see the newspaper? Right there, you've got where the school won this key basketball game, or they had this big football win. And then right next to it, you have some athlete who did something knuckleheaded, and you got those 2 articles right next to each other. I can tell you, athletic directors do not like being put in that position. And so they have lots of conversations with their head coaches, and their head coaches have lots of conversation with the kids. And they say, look, you are a representative of this university. So it's one thing when you're on the field of competition, but when you're out there in the world, you better be mindful and you better be doing smart things. And so coaches are in a position where we're obviously looking for good athletes. We're also looking for kids who are good students, but then we also have to look for people who are just good people, or who look like good people and act like good people, and they're smart enough to not put the team and the school in that position. I believe there's a 3-legged profile that most college coaches want from their athletes, and that's the athletes they're recruiting as well as the athletes on their team. So there's 3 boxes that we coaches want from our athletes. We want them to be good athletes, we want them to be good students, and we want them to be good people. Now, if they're a good athlete, that's going to show itself on the field of competition. We can judge that. If they're a good student, that's going to come through in the grades that'll start rolling in. We can judge that. So that leaves the good person part. Now, I personally don't believe that there's any all good people or any all bad people. I believe all good people occasionally have bad moments, and I also believe bad people occasionally have good moments. It just depends on the moment that you catch them on. So determining if a young high school kid is going to be a good person or at least a smart person when they get to college, that can sometimes be kind of tough to judge. Are they ever going to do something knuckleheaded that's going to put a team or a university in a bad light? Nobody's got a crystal ball. But there is one thing that will help coaches gain insights, if not completely crack that walnut, and that's looking at your social media. So, the athlete part, look, don't kid yourself. Coaches wouldn't be talking to you if you weren't a good athlete. And the academic part, if you get to the point where you're taking a visit to their campus, you're going to have to turn in a transcript. They're going to see your SAT, so they're going to have a pretty good idea of that. And so don't kid yourself. Coaches are sleuths. And so the moment they ask to connect with you on a social media platform, you're giving them the keys to look through all of the stuff that you've posted in the past. And I'm not saying all coaches do this, but the smart ones do. So if you have a bunch of dumbass, opinionated stuff posted to your social media, and that kind of paints a picture of you as an edgy person, well, perception is reality. Let me say that again. Perception is reality. Who you are really doesn't matter. How you come across right now in this very beginning phase, it's really important. I'm not getting into whether it's right or wrong because I really don't care. But okay, just for example, let's say somebody follows a lot of pages and they have a lot of posts that's all about the legalization of weed. Well, a coach who's browsing their social media may come across that and they may walk away with the feeling that, well, okay, this kid smokes a lot of weed or maybe does other drugs, and that goes against our institutional rules. And so I don't want that element on my team. And you may not even be aware, but they may have offered you a scholarship that was worth over $100,000 over 4 years to you and your family, and you're now not going to get that, and you're never even going to know that it happened. And I hate to say it, you only have yourself to blame. I tell all my clients the same thing I'll tell you. Be mindful of what you post. If you see yourself either right now or possibly later as a kid who might find themselves recruited by college coaches, these are my top 3 tips that I suggest for anybody when it comes to their social media. Number 1, go back through the last year or two and pull any posts that you may have made that, just may paint a picture of you as being a little overly edgy. And the same thing goes where, maybe your post was absolutely fine, but some of your friends got in there and they made comments. They dropped F-bombs or, they just got into off-color topics that just, again, are going to paint a picture of you as being condoning of certain behaviors or just being overly edgy. You don't want any of that stuff. Pull it. Number 2, another thing I suggest is that you go into the settings of every one of your social media profiles and you set it to private. That way, anybody who wants to see your stuff, they're going to have to request that of you. They're going to have to friend you. They're going to have to ask permission. And that way, you're going to know who's looking at your stuff. And if you don't know how to do that, here, just get onto YouTube and simply type in something like how to make my Facebook settings private or how to make my Instagram settings private. And there'll be a million tutorials that'll pop up. Super easy to do. But definitely go into your social media profiles and set everything to private. And number 3, as hard as it may be, get somebody looking over your shoulder. And what I mean by that is literally request somebody follow you, somebody friend you, and then tell them the image that you're trying to get across, what you're trying to convey, and why. And then ask them to give you feedback. And if they tell you, hey, that kind of hit me as wrong, or hey, I noticed one of your friends dropped an F-bomb, or hey, I noticed one of your friends said this, and I don't really like that, then listen to them. They're telling you, hey, pull that. And so, listen to them, pull it. And, look, if you're not comfortable with mom or dad, and I totally get that, then ask a cool aunt or a cool uncle, or ask a teacher that you trust. I don't know if I'd necessarily go with a friend or a brother or sister. You may want to get somebody a little bit older and just give them the keys and ask them for that feedback. And when they give you that feedback, act on it. So look, the big point of this video is simple. You don't have to go crazy with all your social media. This is a really easy thing. Just be mindful of what you're posting. Just be smart. Think about it. And because people are looking at your profile and they draw conclusions based on what you put out there. So you have the controls. You get to choose what you put on your social media. And what I would advise you from where I've been, I've just seen too much, just be smart with what you put out there for the whole world to see. As always, want to wish you the absolute best of luck with everything you're doing, your academics, your sport, just all of your goals. And as you know, this channel is all about athletic scholarships and kind of helping people with the athletic recruiting process. And so, look, if you found this video beneficial, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. And if this is an area that you're interested in, absolutely click the subscribe button as well as the notification so you get new videos whenever I drop. And, also, as I mentioned earlier, if you're wondering, besides your sport and besides you becoming good, what is other stuff that you need to be doing to really put yourself in good position to get recruited? Down at the bottom of this video, there's a link. All you got to do is click it, and completely free, I will send you my guide that I personally put together. It's all your best practices of everything you need to be doing from your freshman year of high school all the way through your senior year of high school. And so, anyway, look, again, we'll be dropping another conversation shortly, and that's it. Want to wish you the best of luck with everything. Take care.